Hi everyone, welcome to day 16 of my 100 days challenge. Today we'll be solving one of the SQL interview question asked in American Express data analyst interview. So let's see the question. So the question says you are given two tables. One is the user table which has user informations and one is the transactions table which has the credit card transactions informations. Now it says write a query to find the users whose transaction has breached their credit limit. Now let's see the user table. We have user IDs, we have user names and we have credit limit. And we have transactions table. In transactions table we have transactions ID, paid by, paid to, amount and the transactions date. We need to find out those users whose transaction has breached their credit limit. That means the transaction has crossed their credit limit. So let me open pgadmin4 where I have created and inserted this data to solve this question. Now I can say I've already created a table and inserted the same data to solve this question. So let's see first table which is called users, and let's see the data that we have in the users table. Now you can see we have again the same data which is user ID, username and their credit limit. Let's see the transactions table. In the transactions table we have transactions ID, transactions paid by, paid to, like paid by the users and paid to users, transactions amount and the transactions date. Now what we need to find out is the users whose transactions amount has crossed their credit limit. Now credit limit we have in the users table. If you see the user table, in the user table we have their credit limit which is their existing credit limit. And we have the transaction informations in the transactions table. So let's write down the approach that we will follow to solve this question. So first thing we need to do is that we need to join both the tables. So we will join users table and this transactions table based on this user ID, because both table have the user ID. So user table and transactions table we will join. Now let's see the transactions table. So in the transactions table we can see that we do have transactions ID, paid by, paid to, like these are the users. So we can see one user is paying to another user. Now you see this user ID 1 who has paid 400 to user ID 3. So that is this date. So again you see user ID 3 paid to user ID 2, that is 500. User ID 2 paid to user ID 1, that is 200. Let's understand how credit card works. Let's say there's a user called A and the user has a limit of let's say $300. Okay. Now this user ID has done a payment of let's say $200. Okay, so this user ID will have a limit of what? 300 minus 200, which is going to be 100, right? Let's say there is one more user ID which is B. Now B has sent 500. Okay, 500 to this user ID A. Okay, so B has sent 500 to user ID A. So this user ID 500 is going to add it in the credit card, right? So now this user ID earlier it left with 100. Now basically it will have one more 500 now, which is going to be 600, right? So basically if I talk about the total limit of this user ID A spent, so that's going to be 300, which is the earlier limit, now going to be plus 500. So the new limit of this user is going to be what? New limit is going to be 800. So that means this user ID A can spend up to 800. Okay, so this is what it is happening here. You see user ID A has a limit of 300. Now this user ID got another 500. So the limit got increased to 800 for spending power, basically the spending limit. Now till the time this user ID doesn't spend 800, the credit card is not going to breach the limit. If the user ID spend let's say 801, right? 801, then only the limit is going to breach because this user ID has crossed the limit. So this is how it is working, right? Now you can see one thing here, which is one user is paying to another user. So we need to identify here how much money they have paid, that is going to be spent, and how much money they have received, because the money they have received we will add that money with their credit limit. Then we will check if their spend is greater than their credit limit. Now the spend is going to be the total money that they have sent, and their credit limit is going to be their existing credit limit plus the money they have received. So that is what we need to do. So we will first do join, which is between user and the transactions table. Then we will see each users and how much money they have paid or they have spent, you can say. So we will see each users and money, or you can say total paid. Okay, so this is what we will see. Now then we will need to see how much money each user has received. So we will see each user money they have received. Okay, so this received money we will need to add with the credit limit. So then fourth, what we need to do, this received money, as I said, this received money we will add with the credit limit. So we will add credit limit plus this received money, which is RM, received money, and that is going to be a new limit. Okay, now at the fifth, what we will do is that we will check each users we will check and their spend is greater than this credit limit CL. If greater than credit limit, we will return those users and their like all the information like total limit, total spend, and their user ID and name. Okay, so this is what approach we will do step by step to solve this question. So let's first go step by step. Let's first write down the first thing, which is I'm going to select everything from the transactions table for now. Okay, I already have it here. So what I need is that I need paid by, that's my user ID, and the amount they have paid. So I will do a group by this paid by, so I can find the total amount they have spent, okay, or they have paid. So I'm going to say here paid by, and I'm going to save it as users, right? This is my user ID. Next, what I need the total amount they spent or they paid. So I would say this column sum on this total amount, which is going to be sum amount, and I'm going to say like total spent. Okay, so this is going to give me, if I do a group by this one means this paid by, so that is going to give me each users and how much money they have spent. Okay, you see I have each users and how much money they have spent. Now this is I'm going to save in a CTE called spent table. Okay, and I will save it as inside this parenthesis I'm going to put this data, so that is going to give me the spend table informations. Okay, so this is fine. Now next, what I need the total, other than total spend, I need the total money received, correct? So I'm going to again do the same thing here, but this time I will say paid by. Instead of paid by, I would say paid to, because the paid to is the user who has received the money, and I will call it total received, total money received. Okay, so this is going to give me the total money received, and I'm just going to show you. If I just run this query, okay, I will have the total money received. So let's see. So you see we have user ID 3 and we have user ID 2, user ID 1, and the money they have received. So this is the total money they have received. Now I want to check each users and their credit limit, right? So what I can do, I can save this one in a CTE called money received. Okay, so I'm going to save it in another CTE. So I would say money received table, okay, as inside a CTE. All right, so almost all the information that we need, which is user ID and the money they have received, user ID, the money they have spent. Okay, these are the two things we have. Now what I will do is that the first thing, I will join the users and the transactions table. Okay, like I will join this city and this city, and also I will join both the city with the users table to get the user informations. So what I do is that here I will select the user ID. So let's say select user ID, select user name. Okay, now I will select their credit limit. So credit limit is the column name. All these things I'm getting from the user table. I will give the alias later on. So I would say from users as you. Okay, let's give a short name. Now I will join this table, user table, with this first table and this second table. Okay, so let's see the user table quickly once more. Now in the user table we have user ID, user name, and their credit limit. Okay, so I think I have got everything correctly. User ID, so I would say u dot user ID, and I will say u dot user name, u dot user credit limit. Okay, now what I will do is that I will see each user ID and user name how much money they have spent, correct? So from this table I can find out, right? Because the user ID are same, so I can join this table with my user table. Okay, so I will do a join here. I will decide which join I need to do. So let's do a join here, and I would say join with the spend table. I think first table city name is spend table, so I would say join with spend table as st, and on what conditions? On u dot, because they both have the user ID common, right? For each user ID I can find the total spend, and each user ID I can find the total limit in the user table. So I would say u dot user ID, you can say here, and st dot user ID, because the st table has also user ID, correct? So st dot user ID. Now what is the join I need to do? Now if you see this user table, in the user table we have 4 users and their credit limit. So there is a possibility that not all the user has done transactions, right? Maybe some user has done transactions, some user has not done transactions, but maybe they have received money, right? So if I see that spend table, you will see that we only have 3 users who has spent the money. Rest of the user have not maybe used their credit card. So I will need all the users and their total spend, total limit, and if they have not spent, that is okay, right? So I will do a join called left join here, because I need everything from the users table, which will give me all the users ID and their credit card limit and their name. So I will say left join here, because left join will ensure that I select all the users from my first table, which is user table, and their user ID, their username and the credit limit. Then I will select few of the column from my right table. Okay, so I will say left join, and my join is done. Now what else I need from the right table, which is my spend table. So from the spend table, I only need the amount spent, which is total spent by this user. Okay, so I would say st dot total spend. Now st is the name I have given to the spend table, you can see it here. Okay, so I got the total spend. Now let's say I also need the total money they have received, right? So I will do one more join with this money received table, because in money received table also I have each user's ID is the same user who has existence in the user table, and the money they have received. So I would say here again one more join. So this is again going to be left join, because I need everything from my these two table, and based on their match, which is based on this user ID, I need the informations from my right table, which is going to be this time money received table. So I would say left join and money received as MR. Okay, and on what conditions again, which is going to be maybe u dot user ID equals, because they have the same user ID in common. So MR, okay, I will just give it alias MR dot user ID, because if you see the money spent or money received table, they both have the user ID, right? I can just show you. This is the money received table. We can see each user and how much money they have received, right? You can see it here. All right, so I have done the join. So why I have done left join, because I will need all the users from my first table, username from the first table, their credit limit and their total spend from my right table, which is the first right table, which is this one, and then I will need the total money they have received from my this MR table. So I would say MR money received. Okay, so I think the column name is money received. You can see it here, total received. Okay, it's total received, so I'll just change it to the right column name, total received. Okay, now I will run this query. Okay, now there could be one possibility that as not all the users has spent the money, and maybe not users has received the money. So I will use a null if here, which is called coalesce in Postgres SQL. I will use a coalesce if in case the user has not spent or not received any money. I would replace the null with a 0. So I can say col ESCE coalesce. Okay, and I would just give this column name and put a 0. So that will ensure that if there is a user who has not spent anything, that is going to replace by 0. So similarly, I will again say col ESCE, and I will replace this total money received with 0. If in case total money received is null, so that is going to replace with 0, so that I will not get any error if I do any other calculations. Okay, so let me just show you. If I just run this query now, I will have each user's ID and their total spend, credit limit and the money received. Okay, so let's quickly check if there's any spelling mistake. So left join, I missed join here. Oops. So left join and left join, then I am saying money received, correct? So now I should have each user's ID, their name, credit limit, which we already have, and the money received and spent. Okay, now I can see the reason why I have used coalesce is that here I have this user ID and their money received and this one called money spent. Okay, so here, right, it's showing 0 because this user has not spent anything. This user has a 800 credit limit, has not spent anything, has not received anything. So let me just give some meaningful name here. I'm just going to call it as total spent, and I'm just going to call it as total money received. Okay, so let's run this again, and I'm just going to select everything and run it again. So we will see. Now you see each user's ID and their name, their credit limit, which is existing credit limit, their total spend they have done, and the money they have received. Now for this user Peter, so Peter has a credit limit of 100. This total spend for Peter is 400, received only 200. So basically for this Peter, you will have limit of 200 plus received 200, 100 plus received 200, that's going to be 300, but the spend is more than what he has money in the credit card, like the limit, right? So this user limit is breached, right? So we need these users. Similarly for these users, limit is 200. This user has also received, spent 200 and received 500. So 200 plus 500 is going to be 700, and from the 700 he has only spent 200. So this is the user we do not need, because this user has not breached the credit limit. This user existing limit 10,000, total spend 500, receive 400. So still this user has 9,000, another, still this user has 9,900 limit, right, left. So this user also has not breached the limit. This user also has not breached the limit. So I can do a simple calculations here. I can sum this credit limit and this total money received in one column, and then I can do some calculations. If this total spend is greater than this total credit limit plus money received, then we need those users. Okay, so let me show you what I'm trying to say here is that I can simply, maybe I can use one more CTE. Okay, so I can save this one in a new CTE called new, maybe limit, and as, and inside the parenthesis I can put this table. Okay, so now what I need is that I can create one more column here. Okay, so column I want is like this, which is this one. Okay, maybe I will do outside, so I'm not going to do it here. So I will get the informations like, now what I need is that user ID from here. Okay, I will select user ID and I will select user name. Okay, and I would select the total limit or the credit limit. I will select the total spend or maybe money received first. Okay, then I will select the total spend. Now what I want else is that how much new limit they have. Okay, so I will say that new limit is going to be what, this total money received, okay, plus their existing limit, which is credit limit. So this is as new limit. Okay, so this is going to be new limit. Now I can add this in here as well also to make it like more shorter. Okay, now here also it is going to work fine. So this is my new limit. Now I will add it in here as well also. Okay, not in this, but maybe here a new column like this. Okay, so here I will be adding that their total credit limit, which is existing credit limit, plus going to be their spend. Now the spend is this one, which is called, sorry, not spend, the money receipt they have. So for money receipt I will be using the same, I cannot use the alias, so I will use the same line. Okay, so this is the total credit limit and this money receipt using the coalesce functions. Okay, now I will just name it called new limit, as new limit. Okay, so this column has one more, which is new limit. Okay, fine. Now I am selecting user ID, user name, total money received, and I would select this one, which is called new limit here. Okay, so I have just done the calculations here. Okay, now this is fine. What else we want? All these things we want from where? From this table called new limit table. So I'm going to say from new limit table, I want to only select those user whose this total spend, which is we have not selected total spend, so I will select the total spend as well, which is this one. Now I want to select those user whose this total spend exceeds the new limit. Okay, so I would say using where. Okay, so I would just go ahead and say here where, and this total spend, so the total spend, the spend that the user has done greater than the new limit. Okay, so that is how I will get those users who has this total spend that is higher than their new limit. Now new limit is this total credit limit plus the money they have received. Okay, so now if I just run this query, I get my answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and select everything from here to the top. Okay, so let's see. You see, now we have only one user, that is Peter. So you see the created limit was 100. This Peter received money of 200, which is new limit is 300, but this Peter has spent 400. So this Peter has exceeded the credit limit. So this user has breached the credit limit, correct? So you see, this is how we have solved this question. Now we can just go through this code, and we have just followed this step by step. So let's see, we have joined both the table. So that was our step. We have checked first the total spend, which is total paid then we have checked total money received, then we have joined the credit limit plus the new plus the money received as new limit, kind of combining them, and we are using a where functions to select those users where this total spend exceeds the new limit, which is their current limit, and the money received. So this is how we can solve really complex problem using simple approach called CTE and group by. So that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video till the end, and if you really like my content and enjoy solving this type of problem, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a good day, take care, see you tomorrow.